All right, so it's live.
Okay.
We're recording.
You know who won't quit texting me?
Who?
Grammy Award winner Bono.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to New Kids with a Shop. We are joined today with just Shayne Pace.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Not just Shayne Pace. You know what I mean.
The Shayne Pace.
The Shayne Pace is what I meant to say. I apologize. But it's me and Shayne hanging out, talking comics. But first, the name of this episode is You Gotta Write It.
You gotta write it.
You Gotta Write It. We're going to be getting into our top 5 favorite writers working right now. But first,
We've got to talk the Flash trailer.
that Flash trailer.
Number 2, I think it's the final trailer.
Yep. We're just, what did you say? What are we, 48 days?
48 days at time of recording. So
48 days from the Flash movie.
Yeah.
And the reviews are already coming in saying not just DC, the best superhero movie.
I'm
in
calling
existence.
it that it is going to be the best superhero movie of all time. It's going to be changed. If you're listening to this 49 days from now, I will be able to fly.
That's a tall order. I mean,
You saw that
Superman
trailer.
78 exists.
I mean, that thing soared. Starting with the opening voiceover by Keaton,
Yeah.
and you get just any more deeper insight into that character and how he dealt with his parents' death, because he didn't go too much into it, just with his limited screen time in 89, 92. So like anything else like that and how he's dealt with it over the years is excellent. And did that look like Michelle Pfeiffer to you?
So when I watched it the first time, I was thinking it was just a long-haired Batman. I know that seems stupid, like wearing a cardigan and he opens up the thing. But the key thing, when we just watched this, what I heard it is that female voiceover. I didn't think much into it. I think it is. I think it's Selena
Saying that, talking to Barry about
you lost both your parents in the same day. You know, so there's that parallel there with Bruce. And
seems like the ending of the Batman Returns, maybe they did end up reconciling and eventually being together. I hope that they hint at adventures they had in the intervening years, though.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that whatever you and I are probably hoping for, as far as it's not going to be a Keaton Batman movie.
Lamentably, but at least we get a Flash movie.
Any little bit out of it. So there wasn't a ton of new footage, I don't feel. Like,
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, a lot of
Enough to satisfy my cravings. I like the mirror of the Man of Steel stuff, like when the Kryptonian, I don't know if it was that or not, jumps on the jet on the bat plane like they did in Man of Steel, and instead of just making quick work of the pilot, like no, this pilot is Batman.
Yeah.
Just rolls the plane, drops out, and then you see
the wings.
and it's so gorgeous, so reminiscent of the Returns.
And we talked about it because I think we both watched it on Tuesday, and then we talked shortly after that. But you said it out loud, and I never thought about it, and I think it was an aha moment for you too. And that is, it looks so weird because you don't see Batman during the day.
No, and this has him firmly.
Right.
Only in my memory that I can recall on film, Batman's only come out at the end of Dark Knight Rises, and that was the whole point, was that they had to push him into the daylight, and that they made it a plot point. Here we see him out in the daylight, and it's just off-putting.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. The desperate times.
Yep.
Times they have to free a Kryptonian. And again, Sasha Calle just keeps looking better and better to me as Supergirl. I'm sold on it. She screams, "What did you do?" I don't know who that could be at, or what it could be concerning here.
It's been, I'll laugh my ass off. It's something silly, like somebody spills a drink on the good carpet.
She just bought, and it's hard to get out wine stains.
It's terrible. Have you tried?
Oh my gosh, yeah, Kryptonian technology is not even.
They can't even handle it.
But the stakes seem super high. I like the other Barry saying that no one's gonna die.
Yeah.
And like who is it now? I do think that we're only seeing a trailer for half the movie.
Well,
I don't think Zod. I don't know if that's gonna be the big bad.
this is one where I think we have to see it immediately. Like, you have to watch that movie when it comes out, because I think you're right. Again, we were talking about it. I think it's a movie full of spoilers. Mm-hmm. Like, we got the Funko Pops in about a month ago now, and one thing that hasn't been shown or seen is already spoiled by the back of the box. I mean, it's not a huge spoiler, but I mean, it's something that I was unaware of.
Away from it, do you think that they are going to keep this iteration of the Flash going forward? The advanced word is pretty high in I don't know. All the controversy aside, Ezra still looks good in the part.
He does, and I think that people have been dropped for less. Where I think I think Warner Brothers and everybody involved were stuck in a real spot where it's like he's doing career work. Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic, probably the best movie as far as with superheroes that we've ever seen, and they have to like, while all of this stuff is going on, they're like, can you please just like.
Gosh, stop doing weird things.
Stop being weird so we can, make you a star.
Would have hated to be at the PR firm at Warner's and for those months. But he's doing the public rehabilitation, and we'll see how it goes. I just hope that he doesn't do anything. Don't step out of line between now and The Flash, just for my sake.
Yeah, selfishly, please.
Got to see this movie. The world needs this movie.
It looks like
more than he needs to take another hostage.
You don't know that.
It's the balance of the cosmic scales.
I think that
again the blue and gray suit on Affleck, and then one of them in Keaton's arsenal is that. So just the idea that he was fighting at some point in the blue and gray.
Yeah, I mean, you saw. So I guess new footage wise, you saw the room with all the suits, the one that is probably Selena that was opening it up.
Yeah.
So. You've got that other Barry, the shots there where the new stuff was saying no one's going to die. And it was cool. It was neat because in the first trailer, he just looked like scared, like, oh my God, I'm looking at myself, like whatever. And then that scene that we just saw with the no one's going to die.
Yeah.
He is Barry.
And he's at some point powered.
Yes.
Because, and I want to see how they do that. I don't know, maybe that's why superheroes carrying up into the lightning storm at that one point, or what, but they have to like empower him so he can also be a Flash.
Right. There is the one scene where you see both of them. There's like one that's a really bulky suit.
Yeah, well, it looks like a retrofitted Keaton bat suit that he just painted over.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I guess, you have to find something that'll be durable. And who's to say Batman didn't plan for speed of light situations too? He's Batman.
Who knows? It's quite possible.
Yeah, nobody's more prepared than Batman, except other Batman.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
So, anything else you wanted to talk about the trailer?
I will say that my highest hopes are that there is a credit stinger where we get to see Keaton's Batman visit Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent in
that'd be cool,
like an Arkham, a Burton-esque Arkham, where
like a nod to the original script,
and
all that.
who he was supposed to be in the third film, and it would be great. It would be great, and a nice send off for Billy D. Works every time.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Because I hate for the last legacy thing that Billy D. Williams did to be Rise of Skywalker. I mean, just an embarrassment for all involved.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody that saw it.
Oh, everybody that saw it, everybody that was involved. I mean, there were no winners from Rise of Skywalker. We all lost.
Sorry, everybody. That's a little inside baseball with Shayne and I. I mean, you can feel free to enjoy the movie, but I thought it was a disappointing end to the trilogy.
If
disappointing end.
Just don't enjoy it around me, I will berate you mercilessly.
Yep.
It's up there with poverty for like things that have like hurt humans the most on like a scale. Natural disasters, poverty, I don't know.
Rise of Skywalker.
Racism and Rise of Skywalker. That thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
At least you can't blame poverty on one person, just like 5, but Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, we digress. Anyway.
So we were talking about what we want to do for the show, and we were just, the natural thought was, hey, we read a lot of comics. Who would you say are the best people writing comics?
Who do we pick off the top on our polls? Who do we read first?
Yeah.
Who do we look forward to the most? Whose work has meant the most to us over time?
And so we put together a top 5 list. I've got 5. Shayne's got 5. We're going to...
Very loose parameters, just the people who've done the bulk of their work since 2000.
Yes. And, and then basically we both... this isn't speculation. This isn't anything as far as who's been super hot shot or getting more TV shows or anything like that. It's basically we read the comics, we look at the comics, they speak for themselves, and we pick who has honed their craft. So
who tells the best stories?
There you go. And kicking that off, we were planning on doing something, discussing, because this week is actually the actual release week for World Tree.
Yes.
And Blue Book 3 came out as well. So we were going to just do like a little bit where we were discussing those books because they have been fantastic. However, we just figured we'd kick it off. My number 5, top 5 writer right now is James Tynion.
Someone who's on an absolute hot streak.
Absolutely. So I got into him personally with the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was the first thing that I actually read that I recognized that it was, him. I may have even read something else or whatever, but Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Talk about making a splash.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people missed the boat on that because some of the crossover books, especially with Ninja Turtles, somebody for me in my age, it's right up my alley. It's like Batman animated series and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon were like
X-Men 93, like right in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, so I watched those. I was fans of both. I was like, well, hell yeah, Batman and Ninja Turtles. But I was thinking it was going to be more of what they do with the Scooby-Doo route, which is they bring Batman over to the Scooby-Doo realm and kind of make it have the Scooby-Doo feel.
Right.
And instead, on this one, it was the Ninja Turtles more in Batman's realm.
They fit comfortably.
They did.
Yeah.
And it was fun. They actually made yet another one. It was another... that was another story where they made an adaptation, a DC animated, but it was in collaboration, obviously. It was the Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I don't know if anybody's ever read that story, the premise is that the Ninja Turtles are going after Shredder, and it just coincides that Batman's going after Shredder too because he's got this nefarious plan. And the Ninja Turtles and Batman meet up, and typical... the typical scenario where it's like, hey, you can't be going after, like, who are these guys? They must be bad guys too. Or like, are you with him? And so Batman...
It was a real meet cute between the Dark Knight and...
But then they end up finding out they're on the same side and they work together and blah, blah, blah. But
we're not so different after all.
Right. But it was a lot of fun.
It was good.
And I read that, and it's not like, that wasn't... It was an excellent job with the properties, and I thought it was written well. It's not what blew things up for me. It's not like, oh my God, this guy... Because he went on to do a run on Justice League Dark that was fantastic. He was on Detective for a good long while. He put in his time before he got mainline Batman, which...
I enjoyed both.
Yeah. He was on a tear on how many issues did he get of Batman?
Good question.
86.
Quite a few.
To like one... Because Williamson took over for a single arc before... Zdarsky took it at 125. So approximately 4 years, Batman. Anyway, not too bad. Then he did the mainline regular Joker series. Nice House on the Lake. And this is just the DC work so far. But I think the thing that everybody took notice is Something is Killing the Children on Boom Studios. That's kind of what made him, as far as comic book people, like a household name. And... It's, I personally feel like it always started off strong. Like I was in issue 1 and I thought it was strong and I loved reading it.
Things shot off like a rocket.
But after it dove, because the whole story about that and the value of those first few issues is because it was hanging around, 20s and 30,000 print runs until it was at 120 to 130,000 print runs. As far as everybody picking up on it around issue 6 or 7 where it started climbing again.
That's where I did.
Yeah. So all of those first 6 issues are like, good luck.
And I can't wait for the next one to come out each time.
Absolutely. But then just this week, it was supposed to have been 2 weeks ago, but they had a giant print error where every single copy that was ordered had to be destroyed. And then they resent all the issues again with a 2-week turnaround. So that's pretty quick. World Tree came out, and he did interviews and stuff. He said already that it is another long-term plan with something where it's like planned 75 issues, so getting in on the bottom floor. And
talk about a whiz-bang of a first issue.
Yeah. I mean, I put it in there, top 5, top 10, somewhere in there. As far as first issues, like, yeah, I'm in, let's do this, and excited for the next issue. I can't wait. Like, I'm pumped. Like, I read it. It's gritty. I don't want to say it's fun, but it's fun.
No, I think it moves fast enough that you're having fun, even if the characters are not.
Miserable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And I like how he loves horror. You know, I've heard him, you know, on interviews, and you can read
Oh, I mean,
all of this stuff.
Department of Truth.
Oh,
Gosh, how could we forget that? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Another great.
The premise of it, like if enough people believe something, it's real, and then
They can manifest.
they can manifest.
They can manifest these conspiracy theories into reality, so they're not conspiracies anymore. It's a great premise, but so something is killing the children, and so is World Tree.
Yes.
Like the guy, and I've noticed that over his time over the last decade, his pacing's gotten a lot better.
Yes. I mean, he's honed his craft for sure.
Yeah. So like I've noticed, especially with the last few arcs of Something's Killing the Children and Nice House, and then World Tree issue 1 is a perfect first issue.
It is.
It tells one story, but it also sets up so much, and it leaves you wanting more. I can't wait for the next issue.
I was a little frustrated though because we got the air copies of World Tree in 2 weeks ago when they were supposed to be released, and I read it then. So the gap between 1 and 2 is actually the 6-week torture instead of just waiting the normal 4 weeks. So
We'll get it again.
but you know,
But from now on, whenever, instead of telling my dad I love him, I'm just going to give him a copy of World Tree.
there you go.
Should be plenty.
That's the way to somebody. So show somebody true love.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, people, is you need to run out and grab the number 1 issue and get on board. It's a fantastic first issue, honestly. We have sold probably organically off the shelves more of that book than any other book we ever have.
The numbers shocked me.
And it's been a fun ride, and it's been fun talking about it. And
Don't you
seeing
know,
people.
like you know the secret handshake to Tinian's clubhouse, right? You're in.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot
Tiny
about
Onion?
that. Tiny Onion. Yeah. So since he started that, I've been part, and that's the other thing I'm excited about is tomorrow in the mail I should be getting my gold foil for World Tree. I mean,
As far as synergy goes, I mean that guy is a business model all unto himself for how to make it be a huge presence in comics.
I think when he decided to do that club, he instantly made it. So he was making, I don't know, at least $300,000 a year to write exactly the books he wants
You
to
gotta
write.
parlay it. You gotta be on your hustle.
And then he's got, that's nothing to do with sales of the books. So, I mean, he's doing all right for himself.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to be part of a fun thing? If
Yeah.
one of your favorite writers offers fun exclusives to a website just for you.
Well, and they were fantastic. So we did 6, like one every 2 months, and the 6 last year was I got one for Wind, I got one for Sandman, Nightmare Country,
Yeah.
I got one for 2 of them for something because there was one for 26 and there was one for 30. I think. Is that true? Yeah, because of the breaks in between, that's how it worked out, or 25 and 30, something like that. And then one for The Closet. And those were all the foils he did last year. And the very first one for this club is World Tree.
World Tree. Yeah. The Closet was another banger.
Yeah.
It is a nice way to get like an inside track on an artist you love. Close I have right now is I rifle through Steven Spielberg's trash cans.
Don't do that. That's illegal.
He's not up when I'm doing that. So I mean that's good. I mean
Yeah. I mean, Tinian's my number 5. I guess I'll justify this. He's number 5. You've heard me talk about his books and stuff. The only reason he's at number 5 and not higher is my criteria, at least personally, I had decided, and I was talking to Shayne about it ahead of time. These aren't like pre-spoken rules, but I think we both read comics the same way, where we're both like, well, yeah, duh, you have to judge it that way. And that is, Tinian is a very good writer. He's very skilled, but I haven't read a book of his where I've been like laughing out loud, crying, and or both at the same time. The emotional part, like there's mad props and respect for his craft, but the emotional side of things aren't there, which is why he's on 5 instead of possibly higher. And I just wanted to justify that. Meaning, as this goes up, at least on my list, it's going to be more and more feels.
5 out of exactly. And 5 out of all the writers is no bad shake, so
For sure.
So my number 5 is one who's also followed the Kirkman model of working for the big 2 before you strike out and you bring your readership with you, and that's one Ed Brubaker, who he'd done some underground stuff, made his first big splash with 1999's Scene of the Crime for Vertigo, which would give us it was a harbinger of things to come eventually, but he went right to work for DC. He did Batman and Detective for a while.
Yep.
He did a great run on Catwoman of East End that Darwin Cook illustrated for a while.
That's awesome.
Those two would form a bond. Yeah, they would end up working on Parker together later on. They had a very, very kindred spirits. And then the Man Who Laughs, obviously. And then, as most of you know, he jumped over to Marvel and did just some of the best Marvel comics I've ever read. He did Cap.
Yep.
His Captain America run in the early 2000s, and then he did just a terrific Daredevil, and we'll break those down because Cap, what he did with Cap was
Gave us Winter Soldier.
there was always the adage in comics that no one's really dead except Bucky Barnes.
Right.
And he took on that. He took that as a challenge, and it was a bad idea. Like, don't do that. And then he does it, and it's like, oh, it's a bad idea unless you're a genius.
Right.
And he made it sing. Yeah, he made him a. Of course, he's a Russian sleeper agent. Like,
what else could he be?
what else could he be? And over these several years where Cap, he just redefines Cap for us now, and we're still feeling the repercussions. Like, the Cap that we have now is still firmly rooted in like the work that Brubaker did while staying true to the character.
Well, and on top of that, all of the constraints contained within Civil War.
Yes.
Because he had to be,
Well, yeah, when he-
because it was a tie-in, and he had to like play nice with all of that. Because you remember there was all the kinds of at the time I remember seeing it, and it was like his hand there with the handcuffs. Like,
Yeah,
remember that
yeah,
and all
yeah,
that? I was all like, oh, man, I can't believe they're arresting Captain America.
Trial of Captain America, all that.
Yeah.
And then with Daredevil, he took over for Brian Michael Bendis. And
So that was the Marvel Knights stuff.
no, the Marvel Knights was Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada. And then
Okay, yeah.
then Bendis, then Brubaker, then I believe Wade, then Sewell, then our current favorite ship. But he took over. What Bendis did, though, Bendis' last issue, spoilers, but you guys should all read this anyway. And it doesn't ruin the run, but he on Daredevil's last issue for the Bendis run, before Brubaker, he hands it off to Brubaker, he puts Matt in prison.
Yep.
And then he's done. Done. And so Ed Brubaker has to start his story with Matt Murdock in prison, and he they had agreed on it. It was well planned in advance. And boy, read for yourselves, guys. But it is an absolutely fantastic story amongst several fantastic stories. But then this is when Brubaker, he really steps out after this, goes to Image. It was like Pac getting on death row in '96. Like, he was ready to go. And then you have just a murderer's row of great stories, starting with Criminal, which I guess was written for Icon, but
Yeah.
whatever. Fatale, Velvet, The Fade Out, Kill or Be Killed, Pulp, and then right now he's working on the 6th in the series of, they're like pulp novels but comics, and that
Right.
those are the Reckless series. Yeah, and just like the pulp novels, you get one every year, but in this case every few months, and they had developed it over COVID. Him and Sean Phillips, who is his road
Co-creator
dog
on it,
closest, does work for him. Like, I would say like half of the strength of all these stories usually is Sean Phillips' artwork, but
But that's also it's pretty well known work. It's if you go to any comic shop worth its salt, they are suggesting the Reckless books.
Oh, yeah,
and they're
so it's
Quality reading.
He's done some great stuff with Steve Epting illustrating, but the career stuff is him and Phillips are like the real partnership. And the only reason he's at my number 5 is because my other 4 are all better.
no excuses, huh?
So, but Ed Brubaker is a wonderful writer, wonderful contributor, and again, there have only been at time of recording, there have only been I think 15 or 16 writers ever on Daredevil. Mm-hmm. They've all been good, and even among those, Brubaker's a standout.
Yep, absolutely.
On my favorite Marvel characters. So, do yourself a favor and read any and all of those.
And I will say, I've never been a huge Captain America reader. Like, I read a little while when I was,
this got everybody into it, yeah.
and
yeah.
it wasn't even just the Civil War tie-in aspect of it. Like, there were stakes. Like,
No, I remember in the comic shops, this was like people were talking like something's happening with Cap right now.
Yeah.
Like, you should be reading Captain America.
well, because he was playing, well, he is. That's who Steve is. He's the Superman. Like, from a moral standpoint.
Yeah, he'll always do what's right.
Yeah.
Or what he thinks is
And
right.
he was taking that stand, and he was getting shit on all over it. And then all the stuff, like, if you guys haven't read the run, I don't want to ruin anything, but like, Sharon plays a big part. Bucky's back. all of that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the run.
You should be pausing it right now and ordering the Omnis off Amazon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or us.
Shayne. Here
Thanks.
at yeah, no.
Just kidding.
Forget Amazon. Come to the arcade. Go to the LCS. Anyway, so I'm good. What you got any more for Brubaker, or did I leave anything out? I feel like I might have left a couple gems out, but
He's been going for a long time.
I like
too.
it. Well, and the other thing is like I do want to touch on this. He brought noir not back to comics, but he made it sing. Like he made it noir a prominent genre in comics. Like
it did. Gun Honey is noir type in that sense, and it's brought what is the girl who loved Nikolai Tesla,
yeah, stuff like that.
Like all those
and like crime things, like 4 kids walk into a bank, stuff like that, where this neo noir is really like taking a front.
Good Asian success is probably
absolutely
all
absolutely,
that stuff as far as going off of that.
But yeah, and I think that all started with and they're all like anthology series, like Criminal and stuff like that. And it reminds me actually of Stray Bullets.
Yeah,
the Great Lapham stuff, where you have just these great crime stories, but also the characters are so personal. Like you know the characters so well. The stakes are high because you just want this guy that you've been hanging out with to make out all right. You want this lady to make out okay.
Right.
Sometimes you're rooting for them to get away with a crime. It's great. It's great. It's just that great hard boiled Chandler-esque potboiler stuff, and it's dirty. It feels dirty.
It is. It's fantastic stuff, though.
Yeah, these are the low lives these are the low lives, but they're still lives, man.
Yeah,
if you will.
So, shout out Brubaker. If you get a chance, go out and read.
Big ups to the big homie.
For sure.
All right. Well, who do you got? Who you got in the 4th spot?
This really bothers me now. Full disclosure. Number 4, I got Chip Zdarsky. And I wanted to change my list, but I'm sticking with my list. Because right before this, so I don't know if we're located in Indiana, for those of you that don't know, and we are right down the road from Lunar. So we actually get our DC books. So next week's DC books that come out on Tuesday, I get them every week on Thursday. And I didn't have time yesterday. I was super busy. But today I picked up Batman 900. And this isn't the whole reason why I picked Chip. Chip was already on the list. This just solidified it. Batman 900 is one of the best, most fun Big 2 comics I have read in a long, long, long time.
Talk about a Hallmark card to Batman.
It is
Hallmark card with a crisp 20 in it.
It is insane, the love for Batman in this Batman book. Like, you get so much Batman out of one book. Like, it is an amazing milestone issue. It is like, what is double or triple sized, probably.
You easily celebrates the character while the character is solving a crime, is doing the Batman stuff.
It is nuts. It's very meta. You can tell.
Turns out, another talented Chip Zdarsky, he can juggle, because boy, does he keeps those plates spinning.
It's so. For those of you who've been reading Batman, he's been doing the A and the B stories. So both the mainline Batman, which he's been going on in recently in this multiverse thing,
and the backups
as well with Tim.
Yeah. Usually the backups lately in most modern comics, I'm like, oh, okay, something else to get through. These are a delight.
You're like, I paid for it. I should probably read it.
But here it's like, ooh, more.
Yeah, and it's been fantastic, and all of it, it's a symphony. It is, it's amazing. All the pieces come together. This is, if you love Batman, if you think you possibly could love Batman, pick up this issue or just read his entire run. Start at 125. The beautiful fail-safe hardcover's out at this point, so there's no excuses there.
And we can get into the Zdarsky thing after this, but so it's quantifiable that more stories, more words have been written about Batman than any other character in fiction.
Yes.
So if you're Chip Zdarsky, he's not just coming up with something to add, but he came up with, like, first the fail-safe arc and what he's been working on, but then this issue that celebrates all of that and still does its own thing. Yes. It really is an achievement.
Not to even embarrass you, because I was probably the same look. I was in the shop doing other things, and Shayne's reading it, and I look over, and he is grinning like the happiest 10-year-old.
It is just that.
It's just childlike. Like, it is beautiful.
I'd like to see anybody read this and not just
feel something.
Just feel something.
Yeah.
But Zdarsky.
In general, yes, Zdarsky. So when we were putting together the list, I went back over some of my personal greatest hits. I had, so this week alone, I reread Howard the Duck. I reread Public Domain.
Yes. Oh, it's great.
I didn't get to Stillwater. I know you keep telling me to, but I've heard that's another book that I would throw into this pile that would be.
And Stillwater's another one that shows his range, where he's known as the funny guy, but he does stuff like Stillwater,
yes,
and New Bern, and Batman and Daredevil.
Yeah. So Batman and Daredevil being his mainline books, and talk about a tightrope, right?
How
as far as beloved characters,
he's writing, my favorite Marvel character and my favorite DC character.
Yeah,
and banging them both out.
Well, yeah.
I can't imagine that. That's why he lives in the woods, because he's got a fear for his life.
I mean, for one false move, man.
Done.
Yeah. I think it's just because he
got the red lights all over him.
He knows he's going to write better books if he's left alone, probably.
He's got an idea. He was hungry. Did you ever read Sex Criminals?
No, I didn't.
That's where he made his bones, because he just drew it.
Yes.
Fraction, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, I think it was a Marvel editor that just knew how funny he was.
Yeah.
From various writings and everything. And he's like, hey, Howard the Duck would be good for you.
Dude, and that's the thing. It takes a lot. So I think with movies it's easier, but like writing something funny, I think is just as hard as writing something scary or writing something.
Yeah.
Right? So I literally LOL when I read that Howard the Duck run. Or
what?
Laughing out loud.
Oh. So many texts make sense now.
There you go, man.
Oh. Again, I make lists of everything. Howard's my third favorite Marvel character, strong, and I want him to come back, but I don't want somebody trying to be funny or trying to be cute or trying to do.
You and I could name like 3 or 4 people that could do it.
Yeah.
Successfully.
And 2 of them are Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah.
And 1 Steve Gerber. And Chip, he just made a great story. There's an issue towards the end of that run that we've talked about where he teams up with Doctor Strange to fight gentrification, and they win. It is a beautiful comic.
Well, and his arc, he planned it very well too, because he at the very beginning, he's in jail, right? And it kind of plays off the movie thing where he gets snatched up to be part of the collector's collection.
Right.
And obviously Guardians of the Galaxy are there. Mm. And he's, Rocket's the funny part in the movies, and he's written very well the same. And like Rocket's crazy.
Yeah.
And he makes, it's like Howard's funny and his voice is funny and he captures that. But then he gets with Rocket and you're like, how did you out Howard?
And it's
Howard.
And it's also like anytime you get like 2 talking animals in a comic.
Yes.
Now we're talking. Now we got something going. James Gunn sent him a letter of thanks after he read Howard the Duck, just because he liked the comic so much.
That's awesome.
Like, it was this good, and I'm glad you brought back Howard, and so were we. And that was his first, writing gig.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned it.
Juice. He's got the juice.
It's crazy, like when he subtle things, and it's really fresh. So I'm gonna bring up these specific things. Like I forgot at the beginning. Remember the text message? He's like. He finds out he's working as a private eye. She-Hulk's involved. Obviously, they're in the same office, and then he finds out that, there's a thief that took something from somebody. He gets to supply it, and then he's like, I think her name's Catwoman. He's like, oh no, that's Black Cat, right? So there's like that little playful part.
There's a lot of that in the run.
And then he tries to reach out. He's like, oh wait, I got it. I know I can find out where Felicia Hardy is. Like, I'll just ask Spider-Man. And then remember that text he sends him?
No.
Okay, the text message itself is hilarious. Like it has all of the, autocorrect mistypings. Mm. He had to specifically do that, but he captured the autocorrect voicing perfectly even. And it was hilarious.
It's all thought out. And also so that brings up, because he did that was his first Spider-Man voice, but he did Spider-Man Life Story, which again, there's the feels.
Yep.
There's
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Life Story books, because Mark Russell did Fantastic Four.
Yeah, did you know that Chip had an idea for Fantastic Four and he pitched it, but they were like, we got Mark Russell to do it. And Chip's like, oh, do that then.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so Zdarsky ended up doing the Spider-Man Life Story. Right. So that takes the place over multiple issues, and each issue is a different decade.
Each issue is a decade, but Peter ages in real time. So each decade he's a decade older. So you see how he would deal with, Hobgoblin or Doc Ock in his 30s or 40s, and it's a great another great encapsulation of the character that Chip gets.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing where if you read enough comics, I think you feel like when a writer comes on, like a new writer or whatever, like when you're in the midst of an imposter.
You can tell,
right?
You can tell really quick.
You can tell. Like somebody got a writing gig and they're excited about that writing gig, but they haven't done the homework, or they had to do it quick.
Yeah,
right?
like somebody directed like a really, really terrible movie that ruins Star Wars and then gets to write a Spider-Man story. You can tell when there's imposters. But with Chip, you don't ever.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously never know how well read they are if they're just really, really good at faking it. But
Turns out Chip is.
Chip really is.
Yep.
Like, and if you guys haven't, also, if you're unaware of it, he does the Chip class on YouTube. There's only 3 of them, I think, but it's basically
Best time you'll spend all day.
Chip
Showing you how to write comics.
showing you how to write comics.
All you need to know.
Everything you need to know.
Every detail.
Like if you want, how do you come up with ideas? How do you do the pacing?
And he's got a great newsletter. But even his creator-owned stuff that like Capterra and Newburn.
Yeah.
Great little stories. And then, sometimes they break out, like Stillwater went to 18 issues, and it was just another oh, what a wonderful idea. Yeah. And he's really having his moment. And right now he's in the middle of public domain. The first 6 are out, and it's a comic for a comic about a guy and his family who writes comics and trying to deal with rights issues. It is a absolute banger.
It is incredible.
Page turner.
It's essentially, if you boil it down completely, you talk about it's just a book about a family, and the dad of the family happened to have been a comic book artist.
A very Kirby-esque.
Yes. And it's just all of the in the name of the book. I mean, it's a play on words and everything too. Like the name of the character that they created is called Domain. And it's it's an intriguing read.
Yeah, and they take, you can see they're really having fun with
poking fun at the industry.
Yeah, and comic creators getting screwed over. In this case, I mean, they do name the comic company, but it's, I don't want to say who it's supposed to be. It probably rhymes with Blarvel. Mm-hmm. But you get to see the Stan Lee character, and also how the suits deal with creators, how they view the comics creators, the people that are generating the ideas that they're making millions off of.
And the dad doesn't look like George Perez.
Totally. And and again, for such a cynical subject, it's so touching.
It really is.
Yeah.
But it's also it's a cool story because it's very the messaging is wonderful. It's the family being stick together.
The dad just wants the creators. I just want my character back. I just want to write him some more. I had fun doing that. And it is great. And that's one that you could pause right now and get from Arcade Comics Shop.
There you go.
Because that trade's down there. And it's great.
It's fantastic. It's another one where, how I also gauge is I'm pretty pissed off right now that I don't have any public domain to read because it's in between volumes.
Yeah. Chip Zdarsky is another one. There's no bad starting point. Any one of his comics you can pick up, any the first run and be okay, I kind of get this Chip Zdarsky guy.
And he does a decent job explaining the character while telling his own story. He doesn't have to pause and be well, let me get you caught up first. It's I'm assuming you're a reader. Let's do this. And then he just reflects back on times, and he just makes you smile because you're yeah, I remember that too.
And if anyone's ever seen or heard an interview with Chip Zdarsky, you know that he's a man of taste and culture. And it shines in the books.
Another thing I'm going to bring up, because we were just talking about this also, the morning of the release or the day before Batman 125, which is when he kicked off his run, came out, he did a YouTube video. It was probably a DC requirement, right? Something involved where it's you got to push the book.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure he used the front-facing camera on his phone immediately first thing when he woke up, all disheveled, words weren't even he hadn't had his coffee yet. There were only half words, kind of grumbling and stuff, and saying, hey, everybody, this is a reminder that Batman comes out. George drew it. He's really handsome. And you don't have to read all the rest of the books. DC probably wants you to, but whatever, I don't care. It was just
he's got a great sense of humor.
His voice and his sense of humor and his timing, so
get his newsletter. It's just a nice little chuckle every few weeks.
So Chip Zdarsky, that's on my list. He makes me laugh. He makes me feel. about feels in Batman in the failsafe run. Superman comes in, and I had all the feels.
Boy.
I mean, we talked about that
Boy,
too.
we
I was
got
like,
chills.
oh man. I mean, he gets it. He gets it. Read his stuff. Support the guy.
Yeah. Chip Zdarsky.
Chip Zdarsky.
Well, so
Number
that keeps it
4,
with my
Shane.
number 4. And I value writers that I know are smarter than me, and it doesn't happen that often. And especially comics, which it takes. If you want to tell one epic story, that's hard to do in comics. It's based on sales. If your sales slip, if you get replaced by another writer, anything could happen. And this guy is a master of the long plan, and that's saying something for a guy who is known for like not finishing his comics. And that is one Jonathan Hickman.
I knew it.
Jonathan Hickman. He started on his own in the mid-aughts. He actually illustrated his own comics too, Nightly News, and I don't know if he illustrated Pax Romana, but that was another one he did, and they were both really good, really thoughtful.
Because he's what, South Carolina or something?
South Carolina,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So like I don't know, him and Colbert.
Yeah.
That's got to be it for smart people. I don't know. I've never been South Carolina, guys. I was born in North Carolina, but it was when he got to Marvel in the early 2010s, and he did work. He started he did a Shield book, and he did another Shield book.
Like, here you go, kid. You can have Shield.
And he presupposed that Shield has been around since ancient times, and there's always been agents of Shield. For instance, Da Vinci was a Shield agent. That's where you get all your great machines.
So like somewhat Illuminati.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Very much like some Masonic influences.
Yeah.
And then there's a schism in the Shield, and the followers of Da Vinci go one way, the followers of Isaac Newton go another. But anyway, you don't realize at the time that he's planting seeds, because you don't see where seeds scatter. You don't know where a tree is going to come up. So you're just reading the Shield comic. Then he starts writing, Secret Warriors. Which was a great take on Shield and Nick Fury. And then he starts work. He takes over for, I think, Mark Millar. And he starts writing Fantastic Four, which talk about like sending back, like, here, there's a rat on my plate, and then they bring you a steak. That's what his Fantastic Four
So
was.
what was going on in the Fantastic Four at the time before he took over? Because I'm not versed in that, because I haven't been a fan of Fantastic Four, but you speaking about Hickman is
and I just read the Millar run, or finished it again, and the thing that there's the actual stand on the Mark Millar run was not an Elseworlds thing, but a thing he did called Marvel 1985, where a kid from 1985 starts to the actual heroes cross over into reality, and they do a team up in ours to fight a Doctor Doom who's broke into our reality. But and that was good. The rest of the stories were kind of forgettable, but it left Fantastic Four at a place where you could pick it up and kind of go with it.
okay.
So that's what he did, and he took it to the moon. He created the Future Foundation. He killed some prominent characters,
Which are some of the coolest suits redesigned.
I loved that
era.
That was so great. He created Reed meets all of the other Reeds in the multiverse, and I'll tell you what, one Reed is dangerous enough, but you get a bunch of them together, there are going to be some cosmic shenanigans, and we all might die as a result. But it's terrific. But then he starts to write Avengers, and he's on Avengers for a few years, and you see the Illuminati proper here, T'Challa, Iron Man, Reed,
Professor X.
no,
No, he wasn't part of it.
no, not this Illuminati, Doctor Strange, and two more.
Yeah.
But it's the smartest men. Namor, and it's the smartest men in the Marvel universe, and they think that the other
Stark.
multiverses are.
Did we mention Stark?
Yeah, Iron Man. Other multiverses are crashing into Thor, are crashing into the Earths are colliding from other multiverses, and whenever that happens, it destroys one of the universes. And this is going on, like in perpetuity. So like every time the multiverse is slowly destroying itself, because every time this happens, that whole universe gets destroyed, and it's up to our Illuminati, or they take it upon themselves to make the choices. Like, do we destroy that planet before another universe can be destroyed, or not? And they can't figure out a plan. And anyway, what he started to do is he started to pay off things from Secret Warriors. He started to pay off things from 5 years before with his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's starting to pay off things from Fantastic Four, and you get what he's doing is over this, and it's all leading to Secret Wars. Which think of the balls on that. He took the dumbest things, the dumbest events from Marvel in the '80s, because of the '90s we talk about Heroes Reborn, but in the '80s it was Secret Wars, which was such a shameless cash grab. I mean, they were fun, but they weren't good comics. And he was like, nope, I'm going to do Secret Wars. I'm going to make it amazing, and he did. And so his Avengers end, and it sets up the Secret Wars, which is the best Marvel event that I can remember. I think it might be the best Marvel event, and it pays off 10 years of comic storytelling that Jonathan Hickman had, and he had it all planned. I've seen spreadsheets that he had planned out, and it tells this wonderful, wonderful Marvel story that incorporates all your favorite characters. It's a beautiful tapestry, and it is exactly why I read. It's not why I read comics. I didn't know that they could do this until I read this. Like, what it's like this and Claremont's 17-year run. I say both could be considered the great American novel, and this is one of them. And that's not to say anything. And also at the same time, it's the best like Black Panther comic I've ever read. It's some of the best. It's certainly the best Fantastic Four comic I ever read, and that's including the Byrne and even the Lee stuff, which is Lee Kirby stuff, which I love. And he wasn't done yet. I mean, then he wrote Black Monday Murders around the same time, like 2018, before he let enough secrets out and they came and got him, because that stopped at issue 8. But that is Black Monday Murders is one of the 10 best comics I've read in that decade. But I'm saying Jonathan Hickman, he's built something beautiful that only he can do, and I've never seen anything like it.
He's a world builder for sure. Because East of West.
Oh,
yep.
East of West,
starting from scratch,
and Manhattan Projects. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. He's not a quick in and quick out. Like, if you're committed and you like that mythology, you would read a Hickman saga the same way you would be the same type of person that reads Lord of the Rings,
right,
and appreciates mapping it all out, or Dark Tower. Things where it is an epic, keeping track of everything.
Yeah, but it's not. None of his books are things that you're like that when you read them, like, oh, this is too smart for me. They're all books that you read, and after you're doing, like, I feel a little smarter.
Right.
Yeah. He's on your side. He's not.
It's not talking down to you.
No. He's just he is a brilliant guy, and he's writing brilliant comics, and a brilliant comic is still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Hickman's always fun. Even like Decorum, which he just finished.
Yep.
Well, finished the first arc of.
Sure.
Fantastic stuff.
World building.
World building, but he still gets the little moments. There are little moments between characters over his Marvel years that are just perfect interactions.
He doesn't sacrifice character voice for the overall arc. No. It's a nice marriage.
You know what? He put Hyperion and Thor on equal footing, and I bought it. That's how good of a writer Hickman is.
Yeah.
Thor and Hyperion. Yeah. Just Thor and a guy. Thor and your babysitter.
Right.
And it's like they're both going into battle doing the same thing, and I'm like, Yep,
they sure are.
Sure are. And it is wonderful, and yeah, talk about the feels.
I mean, you've told me about...
He doesn't make me laugh very often, but Hickman always gets the feels.
And I have read... Oh, we completely missed the X-Men stuff.
Oh my gosh! And that is my thing.
He did the same thing for
X-Men. That is my thing. The House of X Powers of 10 that brought me back to the X-Men, as it did to most people. I was a devoted X-Men reader for 20 years.
No, to be honest, it's either you've read that and you're a current X-Men reader, or you didn't read that and you don't bother.
Yeah, because it's
like, what's going on in the 16 X-Men books? You're like, I don't know. Read Hickman.
He straightened out, like, because the X-Men have always been a mess, and there's never been like a really good starting point or a good jumping on point. And even when there's so much lore that you have to learn. Yeah. And what he did with the House of X and Powers of 10 is kind of
amazing.
He kind of mitigates all of that, and you can really like jump in and kind of know where you're at. And again, since it's X-Men and Marvel, it took 2 years for that to go completely haywire.
Yep.
But for a while there, X-Men was the best book on shelves.
Yeah, and I read that at your suggestion. Mm-hmm. I've gone through that, so I could at least begin to understand what's going on with X-Men again. So
yeah, the brilliance of that run, and also he He made my beloved Cypher, Doug Ramsey.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Because Doug Ramsey is awesome. That is not a dumb superpower. That's an amazing superpower or mutant power. So
They're all. It's just you got to write it.
you got to write it, guys.
You got to write it.
That's the name of the episode.
Right.
Yes, and it spawned great spinoffs like Zeb Wells' Hellions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was so good. People around it, a rising tide raises all boats, and that's what this one did. And then he left, and all the boats. I don't know. They're fine. I'm sure there's some survivors. I don't know. I quit reading it.
Yeah. I mean,
He made Kitty he didn't, but
a pirate.
made Kitty a pirate.
Full pirate.
That's perfect. That's
It's awesome.
amazing. Yeah.
Marauders. The covers were sure more pretty.
Yeah,
I like the Marauders covers. They were cool.
Those are all pretty. Oh, and the Hellfire Gala.
Yeah.
A great idea. One day a year. They're
X-Men
gonna throw a
prom, of
bash.
course.
X-Men. Yep.
It's awesome.
So that's me. That's Hickman. That's number 3. That's number 4.
Number 4, because number 3 we share. I
We
believe.
share, and this talk about a celebration of a comic.
Yeah, I feel so. Kind of what Hickman does as far as that world building and kind of establishing lore. We both have Jeff Johns as our number 3.
Jeff Johns. He's done it a few times.
He is a household name in the DC world. He's creator of Stargirl.
Stargo.
So personally, I was on the Johns train from Green Lantern Rebirth is where I marked
Yep.
it, where I took notice, and I was like, this guy's going somewhere.
That brought a lot of people to it. Brought us back to Green Lantern.
Yeah, because I was like, it was Hal, right, and then but it also had Parallax, and it was 8 issues or 6 issues, and it was
And it's another one like Hawksbox that had to like straighten some of the wonkiness out of the last 10 to 12 years.
And it's so Johns is, if there's been a main, Johns wrote Flashpoint. Johns wrote,
did.
Doomsday Clock.
He's not afraid to take big swings.
He's really not, and I feel more often than not he'll stick a landing. So based upon my criteria, as far as feels go, it's easier for Johns because he writes the characters I love. I already love them all, right? But he's fixed continuity. He knows his shit.
No, I don't think there's anyone on Earth who cares and knows more about the DC characters except besides Jeff Johns, and that's including me. So that's saying something. The guy knows.
And he loves them.
Because I came to him a few years early with his Justice Society.
Yes.
And he resurrects this 1940s team.
I know. I read those.
Right.
But Rebirth was like. I'm not trying to. I read John. I guess I didn't. I was trying to re-explain myself. Like I had read John's before, but I wasn't as interested in Green Lantern as I was. Like he made that a beloved character for me. And that was the first time I took notice.
He created the Spectrum, which is just
Yes.
It's one of those eureka ideas.
You're like, well, if green is willpower, like
Are there
why
other
wouldn't- yeah.
powers on the spectrum? And it was great, and it turned into a multi-year epic story with spin-offs and everything in it, culminating with Blackest Night.
One of my favorite events.
Oh my gosh,
down.
it's terrific. And then the Whitest Night epilogue, which
Brightest Day.
Brightest Day.
Yep.
Jeez.
No, and all of and he made all those oaths, the new oaths for all of the rings,
And they're amazing.
Yeah. I mean, so it has that same feel and idea and heart as the original stuff.
As we said, it gave us Larfleeze.
Yeah,
That's all I needed. And everybody gets their due. And like every character, whenever he writes any character in the DC canon, he gets their voice exactly right. Like how do you get the big guys perfectly? But then Red Tornado shows up, Martian Manhunter shows up, and whatever they say, it's like that's exactly what they would have said in this situation.
well, like in Doomsday Clock, where you like mime and like the idea. But I mean, so. Everybody know. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. Everybody knows all the Watchmen / DC, all that stuff that's been going on for years and years. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, great, they're bringing Watchmen into the DC universe." And then Doomsday
I
Clock
was one of those guys.
right? And then Doomsday Clock also then had its problems as far as timing. It was 12 issues that didn't come out for like 2.5 years.
But in hindsight,
But for those of you if you're one of those people that just decided not to go back and read it now that it's all out, it makes perfect sense, and it's awesome, and it's actually a Superman story, not a Dr. Manhattan story.
But it's also it's a DC story. We talked about this. I think it is if the beginning of our DC universe, right as we know it, is Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think this is a perfect Doomsday Clock is a perfect ending, and that is one
Yes.
30-year story.
Yes.
And it was great. Now, of course, it's comics, so it just keeps going, but it is a great culmination. It's a great, satisfying ending, and also it puts Superman Prime in center in the story in our hearts where he deserves to be. It was just a great comic.
Yeah.
As all of them are. Like, I've never read because I've never read his X-Men. I've never read a John's run that I wasn't very happy with, that I didn't kind of love. I mean, he's the one that put Billy in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. He brought he put Stargirl on the Justice Society and made the Justice Society a thing.
Yep. Which currently he is writing that has a current book.
Went back to that well.
Yeah, and it's some of the best stuff.
Like, who'd have thought though? Like kids reading in the 2000s would be reading a Jay Garrick story or a great Dr. Midnight story,
Right?
A great Hour Man story. I love it. And he made characters that were at the time 60 some years old, perfect for the modern day. Like, yeah, they work. Alan Scott is still a heavy hitter.
Well, he writes in that Silver Age way that I think, but it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more grown up, but it's still Silver Age. If that makes any sense.
I think he's got that Mark Waid talent for doing that, which is great because like he really came on the map when he took over for Mark Waid. Because Mark Waid was writing The Flash for years, and then Johns took it over, and those are big shoes to fill. Mark Waid is one of the best, and again, but then Johns did the same thing they did with JSA. He made all these kind of forgotten, obscure rogues. Which Flash, I still say Flash has the third greatest rogues gallery of any superhero after Batman and Spider-Man. Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, Captain Cold, Heatwave. Killer Frost, these are great, and Johns gave each one of them their due and made them amazing, made them people. Like, we get stuff like Rogues from last year by Joshua Williamson because of Johns. It could all be traced back there. And Gorilla Grodd, can't forget that. But
yeah,
it was a great
Pied Piper.
Run. Pied Piper, yes, yes. And Reverse Flash, which I wonder how long it took them in the 60s to come up with the name of that guy.
It's got to be rough.
Yeah.
You know, like costume design probably took them at least
I don't know, probably months,
years.
But then a few years ago, well, last year, no, at least 2 years now. Yeah, he goes to Image and writes his own, create her own story. And
Geiger.
I was slow to drag my feet. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I didn't think he could do it. It was more like I want him to keep writing.
Yeah.
Oh, right Green Lantern, right Green Arrow.
Right.
And then I finally read Geiger, and now I'm caught up on Junkyard Joe. And my goodness gracious,
it's awesome stuff.
The guy can do anything. The guy can just write great comics.
And honestly, part of me for Johns, I was happy like doing a creator owned. He had the opportunity to do something that wasn't superhero based, and he still sticks with it.
Yeah.
He just loves superheroes.
But he can make up his own, and they're completely unique and original.
Gary Frank,
and back with his Doomsday Clock partner.
Yep.
And he doesn't have to play in somebody else's sandbox to build a great castle. He can just make one on his own.
Yep.
But again, like, he's a guy that like just writes love letters to DC and DC Comics and DC second and third tier characters, and that's where I live.
And I know it's a recent story, but it's relevant also with the Flash trailer. Like, he's the guy where I saw Batman cry. I believed it. He was vulnerable enough in front of Barry to do so. Mm-hmm. Not like Batman's not like a real tough guy, whatever else. But when he hands him the letter from his dad, he's like, "Hey, man, I got this for you." And at the very end, when he says, "You're one hell of a messenger, Barry," I broke down every single time. I still do. I
tell you what, yeah. There's a scene in the Justice Society comics with Jay Garrick where he's talking to I can't remember the other hero, but they're talking about kids that they've lost, and it's you just lose it.
Yeah,
you just lose it. If he wants you to cry, you're gonna cry.
You're gonna do
it. And he wrote a great Booster Gold after 52.
Yeah,
so, like
the 52 pickup.
Yeah, Johns is just another. He just gets on base every time.
I don't know how you write as much as he does with reading all that he has to.
That's another thing. It's like this guy's clearly read all these comics from the 40s and 50s. There's no other way to get these voices, and then incorporating his own legacy character with Courtney Whitmore, who's based on his sister, his little sister, who died in a car crash.
Stargirl. Just for those that you don't know.
Yeah. When she was 16, and then he got to honor. That's what her design's based on. It looks like his little sister. And what a great thing. And I mean, maybe that's why Courtney's all heart, all spunk. She's just, and she's great. And that was a great. She was also a great follow up to the Robinson Starman of the '90s. But anyway,
Yeah.
Jeff Johns, man.
Jeff Johns.
Are we forgetting something big?
We're gonna feel that way no matter what.
Yeah, I feel like people at home are screaming at the.
I know I know some people that just don't like Jeff Johns because they think that his ideas are too big and he never reels it in. Or he can't reel it in. But like,
they're terrible.
no, I mean, I don't think so. I think what it is like events. For instance, Flashpoint. Do you have any idea how little impact Thomas Wayne has if you only read the mainline book? Like, you have to read the Thomas Wayne tie-ins
to get
to actually figure out like what you have to know. Like, he owns the casino, and the Penguin is one of his people.
Which I guess does make sense because I mean you should know because then it comes back now even.
Yes.
But
So I guess that's one complaint that I've heard is like in the same thing with Blackest Night. If you read Blackest Night main book, which is the part written by Johns, like, but he was doing the other Green Lantern book, so it's all Johns. But if you read just that book, you miss the fact that Guy Gardner at one point wields 2 rings.
Yeah.
Only like he wields the red and green. That doesn't happen at all. All you do is he goes from like issue 6 to where like everything's fine, and then issue 7. Guy Gardner looks like shit because they basically had to give him an exorcism.
Sure. Could be editorial though, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it very well could be an editorial thing. I'm just saying.
But yeah, I see.
I'm not trying to.
You don't get that with you
Bring it back.
didn't get that with the Hickman stuff. It's all of a piece. But you know, that's another thing though. Johns is great. He's like one of those. He's like a great Hollywood director that can work within the system. Like, I get how this town works.
I wasn't saying that to poo-poo it.
No.
I was saying,
but Johns,
everything.
but Johns is great at playing that game. So he's like, okay, he's savvy. He like with editorial, like, okay, like I can make all of this work.
Yeah.
And that's how he survived so long. You know, he's been DC's top guy for decades. And again, they went a different way after Doomsday Clock with Metal. And you know, regardless of how you feel about Metal, I take that back. It was not as good as I think Johns would have been better. But
Yeah.
But Johns is still there. He's still at DC. He's still writing. Again, he's still writing Stargirl and JSA.
Yep. And God knows what else. He can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants. So, future looks bright. Jeff Johns. So who does that bring it to for number 2? You or me?
That is. I started, I think. So I think it's my number 2.
You're number 2.
Okay. My number 2, which we've spoken about before, is one Mr. Tom King.
Yes.
It's short for Tom, as far as I know. So Tom King, he's gotten a lot of love in the podcast. I was thinking about, it was one of those things where I've talked about him, Matt's talked about him, Shayne's talked about him. We've all talked about him quite a bit.
But there's just a reason for it.
There's a reason for it, because I was going to leave him off the list because I would be like, nobody wants to hear me talk about Tom King anymore. But there's a reason why Tom King's on the list, and he's on the list. So my number 2 is Tom King. I mean,
Quite prominent on the list, I noticed.
yes, up there because of feels and what he's done, and then the characters he's got, the love in the same way for Johns, where he doesn't just only do the main guy. Like, he writes Batman, but he can also write Human Target.
Yeah, let's do Fire and Ice. People who've grown up listening to this podcast will know that we love Human Target. It is the most recent of his masterpieces.
And I didn't bring it up when you were talking about it because I didn't want to give anything away as far as my list, but it's kind of got a pulpy feel. Like
very much
that
so,
Brubaker stuff. I mean, I was going to talk about
such
that
a
for through line.
60s crime vibe.
Yeah.
In Human Target. It's so matched perfectly by the story and by the Human Target's actual like persona.
Yes.
Which it's another voice that he gets, but he's doing the voices of, you know, the classic
Justice League as
Justice
well.
League International, and it gets it all while he tells his own great story, and he does that time and time again. I'm sorry, this is your guy.
No. But we talked about it the other night, and I read Death and Return of Superman, which that is the JLA.
Yes,
That is the
them.
JLA that is in the actual Human Target run of the 12 issues. And it was fun because you see Ice then, and she's the one that's like, so caring about everybody, and like she's so sweet. And you see Fire, and she was like a big badass, and she's like, I'll show this guy. And during that time period, and then you get to Human Target, and it's more of the character.
Ice was that, but it doesn't mean that she's not.
Yeah,
so many other things.
So many other things.
Yeah, that's he doesn't portray these characters at all. He just shows you
who they are,
other sides of them. Yeah,
not when they're just punching and kicking, like living with them.
And they're really good at that.
They are really good at that. But that's where I'm going to go with it, is the living with them. And I feel when I read a Tom King book, I know them better afterwards.
Yeah,
when he writes a character,
like, oh, okay,
because it's not always like he's doing Danger Street. That's not a huge, high, super violent, like crazy weird event.
Right? No, it's But there's so many comics where after it gets done, you're like, wow, I had a lot of fun, watching Batman. And then after you read a Tom King book, you're like, oh, I had a lot of fun hanging out with Batman.
Right.
It's like spending some time getting to know him.
And I feel like, I don't even know if this is true. I guess I just feel like maybe he doesn't get enough respect for his run, and it was all because of the whole wedding thing. And then it certainly didn't help when he did fantastic. And then you got the Batman Catwoman, the 12 issues.
I adore.
There is nothing better for me. Like, if Tom King is writing a book and Clayman is drawing it, that is DC. If you're listening, if you could, you do 1,000 issues, I'll buy them all.
You're on a rocket to Jupiter in that case.
It's insane. And Heroes in Crisis in that same way, as far as like the combination,
right. But his Batman run, I like his like. Sure, he does so much like cerebral. I'm going to show you a different aspect, but Batman, he got out of his own way and just told a thumping good story.
Yeah,
it was just arc after arc of fun.
He used it all. I mean, he used Bane again, which Bane ultimately, the first time Bane broke him, and the second time he broke him worse somehow, right? As far as like,
he uses Booster again.
Yeah,
but let's talk about the bagel shop.
The bagel shop.
Booster opens a bagel shop.
So Human Target takes place, I think we may have said this even. Human Target takes place, it's 12 issues, it goes over the course of 12 days. I think day 3, he runs into Booster and he just opened a bagel shop, and by day 12, it's out of business.
Classic Booster.
That
thing is like Tom King is having fun too. Like,
he absolutely
is. They're comic books too.
And so, obviously, to go through this list, let's make a list. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, going to be a movie. We've already talked about it. Fantastic book.
Great book.
Tom King gets art as well. Like, I feel like Tom King's like, I want this person drawing it, or he's got, at this point, him and Mitch are...
Oh, yeah, they got a secret language. I think for somebody who's not an artist, never has been, he really does know how to write for an artist. The scripts have to be really good for the artist, I think.
Yes. And I love that he embraced that he's so terrible. Like, he's not like the joke covers in April. That whole joke.
Yeah.
So
that's a strength. He made a weakness a strength.
Well, because that's just as much his thing as Frank Cho's commissions at cons are. He does
own it.
He owns it.
Yeah.
He takes those people will take up a sketch cover to Tom King, and he draws one of those scenes out like a sport about it, right?
The crudest stick figures.
But he also has like these friendships. Like, one of the only great things about being on Twitter is like him and Mitch going back and forth.
Do they?
Oh my God. Like, he'll do something like that, and Mitch will say something like, like he draws better when he's drunk or whatever. Just ridiculous stuff or like fake supporting how great his drawing career is coming or whatever. Like, you can tell they're friends.
Yeah.
Or they, have a good working relationship.
Ribbon your buddy. That's awesome. The only one, Rorschach is fine. The only one that sits wrong with me, and I still think about it because I don't know, is I didn't like Strange Adventures at first. I didn't think that Adam would do that, but I don't know. Maybe he would. But the fact that I'm still thinking about a comic that I read a couple years ago is there's something right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
But is that? I guess it'd be a time to explore it. So I haven't read Strange Adventures. I haven't attempted to. That was never a thing that I was into. Not that it couldn't be. Mm-hmm. I just didn't run out and grab it because I already had prior.
Yeah, but I didn't realize how informed it was by the comics, the Adam Strange comics that have come before, from the 60s all the way to the Landing stuff in the 90s. Maybe there is an aspect of a brand that would do that. So, but again, like Tom King's thought about it. No matter what you think of his comics, like he's thought about these things. He's thought about these characters. He's got
Yes, and I feel like I said, the way his writing style, dialogue, very, very, very strong point, and he's got the interpersonal relationships. Like, if I read a Tom King book, I'm going to get that out of it, no matter what, no matter who's involved, and I'm going to end up loving a character maybe I didn't love before, but I do now.
Oh, you've read Sheriff of Babylon?
Yes,
You absolutely.
that was his first stuff. Yeah.
That was Jared's, wasn't it?
What?
Wasn't that Jared's? Mitch?
Let me look.
Yeah, I thought.
It might be. That may have been the thing that kicked it all off again, and I didn't even realize that.
I know it was that and Mr. Miracle, and did he do Vision?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was his first Marvel work. It is. Mitch did that as well.
That's great. So what a great foundation.
Yeah.
They had, and what a fun loose trilogy those three stories are: Sheriff, Vision, and Mr. Miracle, about people trying to find out who they are.
Yeah.
In a strange land.
And we're not done yet. We don't even have to. The most exciting stuff for Tom King isn't even like, oh, I read these recently. It's the future.
It's the future, guys.
The future is now. He's doing Brave and Bold.
Brave and the Bold.
He's doing Wonder Woman.
He's doing Wonder Woman. That's the most exciting news.
Yes, with Sam Pierre on the art. Gerard's is doing the Brave and Bold, isn't he? Brave and the Bold?
I sure hope so. I also like the Brave and the Bold are going to be 64 pages long. Because they're going to be more than one story.
Yes. Is that an anthology?
Yeah.
Okay. But Tom King's got a bright future. That kid's going somewhere.
He is. He's gonna make it.
He's probably my favorite CIA agent, or at least previous, maybe.
Yeah. And I've known several.
So, same here. I mean,
yeah,
we all have.
Mm-hmm. So
it's good stuff.
Tom King, that's an excellent choice.
In the feels, obviously, he's up there, but he also writes the characters I love. Batman. He's written a lot of Batman. He's written a lot of Harley. He's written a lot of
Yeah, he's right where you're at.
Yeah.
Speaking of the feels, though, that's my number 2, and this is where he got me all time. I read Essex County about a decade ago, and
I'm excited about this one because I'm not experienced.
I've been a Jeff Lemire fan ever since, such that he was my favorite comics writer until he was planted by my number 1. But so he's another Canuck, and he writes books that are very at once very personal, very universal. Essex County is about brothers in a small town.
Do you have brothers?
Yes. We've never played hockey, and we've never stolen each other's wives. Yet. No. And Essex County is one. I don't know how I came. I think I might have come to it. There's a group called Tegan and Sarah, and they're fantastic. And they've been trying to produce that as a show for as long as I've listened to them. And I was like, well, okay, let me read this. And
They've been making albums since they were 13.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah,
they have a great cover of Dancing in the Dark. But so from that, I found out that he'd written some New 52 Green Arrow. I was like, oh, that's a change from Essex County. He wrote for a Green Arrow that wasn't in his late 30s, early 40s with a Van Dyke beard. This is the best version it could have been. He took the reins from Andy Diggle. The story wasn't working, and he made it just an incredible.
It was 16 in, and they were going to either cancel or give it to Lemire, and Lemire.
And Lemire's like, yeah, I can do that. But he's written stuff a couple years ago. He wrote Royal City, which will change you. Read it all in one go. He wrote Underwater Welder. He wrote one about.
Didn't he write Black Hammer?
And that's what we'll get around to because he did Sweet Tooth, which Sweet Tooth is his other masterpiece.
Ended up on Netflix for all of you that are interested.
Yeah, and I didn't know Jim Mickle was the showrunner in the second movie. He made Cold in July, which is fine. Sweet Tooth is one where it's about being an outsider. It's about family, and it's also it's about post-apocalyptic human animal hybrids. And with all that, it's just universal. It's something that we can all relate to somehow. Seriously, no, not being coy. It is wonderful, and it's one of those things that you'll cry. You'll either cry at 4 or 5 points during the run, or you're a monster.
I feel that one. That's actually that one I am familiar with, and Last of Us, which is a big hit show, and it was a game first.
Yes,
I have kind of the same vibe with that in Sweet Tooth. As far as
there's I say that
some
there's,
parallels.
there's probably some shared DNA there.
Yeah.
And then he also did a horror comic called Gideon Falls, and Gideon Falls, Green Arrow, and Primordial. He did all of these with Andrea Sorrentino, who kind of it's just like Gerard's and
which they met on the Green Arrow book, right?
yeah, and they had you can tell the ones that just gel immediately.
Yeah.
It's hard to do horror in comics, and Gideon Falls it shows his range. And Lemire's a guy. He started out and he still does draw a lot of his own work.
Yep.
And he's got a style that's uniquely his own. Some people find it off-putting, but
Because did he do Maze Book in its entirety?
oh, he did. Yeah, he wrote and drew Maze Book, which that was one of my favorite comics of last year. Cried like a baby.
2 years at this point.
2 years, yeah. But so what he's been working on though the last few years is besides Bone Orchard, which is still in its nascent period. So first I got to get to Descender. Mm-hmm. Descender, and it's follow up Ascender, which I think is every bit as good. This brilliant space odyssey that's about a little boy looking for his family, and the little boy happens to be an android, or a machine. That doesn't matter. He's looking for his brother, who is not a machine, and his mom. And you meet all these great side characters. And you meet Driller the Killer, and you get to know these robots, and they're just as great companions as any human is. It's I don't know. Descender is one that like it might secretly be his masterpiece if people read it. And Dustin Nguyen, another frequent collaborator, did that, and he's also
Little Monsters.
doing Little Monsters right now for him. But all this is leading him. So he the last few years he's done. So it's a guy who clearly loves comics, and that's all he's ever wanted to do. And now he's been writing a series called Black Hammer, which is a celebration of comics history and comics characters that takes place, in its own pocket universe. These heroes, each representing an archetype, or sometimes just flat out a character from. So like there's Barbalian, who's Martian Manhunter. There's an Adam Strange character. There's a Captain Marvel character who's a perpetually little girl who can't change, and then there's your strong, solid leader type.
Yeah,
and they're stuck in this pocket universe, and it's every issue, and it's not going to sound fun, but it is. Every issue is just like an existential question about like who we are, who are we, how did we get here, what does being a hero mean now, what did it mean then,
right?
If we could get back to the lives we had, what would they be like? What would we do anything different? And it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and it's such a good, it's such a strong, because he's using archetypes of characters that have existed for years, but they're such strong characters in their own right that they work, and they work.
Do you have to be a thinker to read those, or
No.
can you read it casually as a guy like superheroes?
You can read. You can just be a guy that likes superheroes. Okay. As a matter of fact, there is a crossover between Black Hammer and Justice League.
Okay,
and it works. And the Black Hammer is such a good, rich mythos that it actually spawned several spin-offs.
Yeah.
Like Black Hammer is an actual superhero that is a spin-off character, and it's a terrific world to go into. And not only that, but because it's a spin-off and because it's so expansive, and because it's such fertile ground, people like Patton Oswalt are writing. Other people are getting. It's like the Hellboy universe where it got so rich and fertile. Other people just got to write and play in that playground, and it's terrific. It's a great, one of the great comics writers doing
well. And you kind of take that personal, because I feel like Hellboy and things like this are our eras. Like they potentially could be there in 85 years, and it's like let's
absolutely.
It's like it's getting.
I think like Hellboy, and stuff like that. Like even the John's Rebirth. You don't realize at the time what's going to have the staying power. What means a lot. And I have a feeling like Black Hammer is going to be one of those that it's going to be on a lot of the top
classic list. Like you got to read this. Yeah,
and it'll be one that it'll be
stands the test of time.
Yeah, it'll be another generation's Watchmen or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great one. And again, every one of his is very easy to read, but they all stay with you. Hard to get rid of.
Which that's the sign of a good book.
Yeah. So, Jeff Lemire. Oh, Roughneck. That's another one. He likes hockey. And and there's always gonna be some hockey players, and a lot of he's Canadian.
Him and Chip.
I think you have to. So
it's like a requirement.
Jeff Lemire.
It's part of Core 40, isn't it, in Canada?
Hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be fun.
I think it's a blast. I only say all this because I'm jealous. We don't live far enough north.
Yeah. My I've never got to see a professional team. My only association with hockey is our local team here and the first, second, and third of the Mighty Ducks films.
There you go.
Yes,
that's about as good a representation.
Yeah, Mighty Ducks 2, where we found out one of the most prominent sports in South Central Los Angeles was street hockey. I didn't know fascinating from a sociological aspect.
Come on now, you live in a world of suspending belief. That's a bridge too far.
The knuckle puck is a bridge too far.
Okay.
The rest is fine.
Sure.
So that I mean, without the fanfare, I mean, does that bring us to number one?
That brings us to number one, which I believe we coincidentally also share.
Longtime listeners should find this as no surprise.
Yeah.
It is Craig's mother.
She writes a damn good book.
She does. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. She's a wonderful lady.
No. Go ahead. Do the honors, Shayne.
Not to just draw it out, but this is somebody that I came to, and I've been changed my life a few years ago, and I've been trying to preach the gospel of Mark ever since.
The gospel of Mark,
and that is Mark
Russell.
Mark Russell.
There you go.
The greatest working writer in comics right now. Which
has been pretty whirlwind. I mean, it's not like we have a huge relationship or anything, but within a month's time, or month and a half, 2 months' time, we were reading fantastic books by him, which led to
interviewing
having on the podcast. And then 2 weeks ago, which we never had a chance to talk about it, we went to Grand Rapids Con, and we actually met up with Mark in Kalamazoo at Grand Rapids Con, and he's just as smart, just as classy, and just as awesome as you'd imagine.
Very, very composed, very elegant with his words, and just an absolute gentleman. He took time for us. He signed everything I wanted him to. He listened to my story about my niece and nephew before he signed a copy of Wonder Twins for each of them.
Which they are. Tell that. It's an awesome story.
Yeah. So Zan and Jada, who are the Wonder Twins from the 70s, the Super Friends show, I love. And they've been kind of out of sorts or out of popularity since. He started writing a run of them, 12 issues, just a few years ago, and it's as spectacular as anything he's ever written. But I didn't know about that at the time that my niece and nephew were born. They're 6 now, and I was sending memes and gifs and photos to my brother and my sister-in-law about the Wonder Twins.
Yeah.
Constantly, and they loved it. They didn't get sick of it ever. They were never like, Shayne, could you please fucking stop? I don't care. Not once. But
also, you and your brother are twins, so there's a history there.
And my brother and I are twins. So I explained all this to Mark Russell while in a very hasty, breathless thing while I told him how great he was, and I laid out 3 copies of Wonder Twins #1, and he personalized each one to Ripken, one to Ryan, and then one to me. And soon after, he drew me a walrus smoking on the copy of Traveling to Mars, just like a legend would.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Tom King cover right there. I mean,
yeah,
but that type of thing. No, but
and all the while talking to me, all the while he was so great about. Craig was cool. Shayne was fawning. I was a fangirl that day, and I have no problem with that.
No, but it's awesome. I get it totally, and I wasn't doing that to make a joke about his art style, because it was in the style of his cartoon book that's coming out.
Right, Bunk Bed Mishaps,
which is still currently on Kickstarter. We the store supported it at a retailer level, so we'll have some in store if you're too lazy to get on there. But please go and support him if you can.
This is the guy who wrote. So he wrote a Flintstones comic that brought me to tears.
Yep.
And then he wrote a Snagglepuss comic that changed my life, and I've given it to my brother, my friend Steven. What's up, buddy? And my sister-in-law. And my sister-in-law, they all 3 of them said it changed them. A Snagglepuss comic, the Hanna-Barbera character Snagglepuss, and it did.
And but
you got to write it.
it's his voice and they're the vehicle, but he still doesn't ignore the characters.
It's a Snagglepuss comic.
It is a Snagglepuss comic.
It's a prequel to the cartoon. Matter of fact, it ends with the first Snagglepuss cartoon.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there though. Like I'm always intrigued by his work too because he has he loves religion, but
and he's thought about religion.
He's thought
but
about religion.
I don't think that he is religious.
Agreed. I mean, I would, if I had to guess, I wouldn't say so, but he has analyzed it.
Yeah, I would say I don't know, Cartesian humanism, something like that.
Sure,
if anything,
but
which is fine.
Where I'm going is like he has Second Coming, which is like it's a superhero book starring Jesus
and a version of Superman,
right?
Where God wants to send Jesus. Jesus only lasted 33 years here, and God was like, "Well, we got to toughen the boy up. So he sends him to be roommates with essentially Superman. And while he's here, Jesus makes everybody around him a better person. But he also, kind of sees our world as it is now and how we treat like our version, our interpretation of the Bible, and surprising no one, we got most of it wrong. But again, it's never preachy, and it's so much fun. It's weirdly affirming.
He writes, he's unapologetic. He writes it assuming that everybody that reads it just is like everybody. You guys know all this. You guys know that this is the way it is. Right?
And speaking of unapologetic, he writes Billionaire Island, also for Horror Comics, which is just they're satirizing our current, socio-political climate, and there's just savaging it, and this is that, and it's beautiful, and it just ended with its 18th issue, I believe, its third arc. Again, Business Dog is the greatest addition to Western canon since, I don't know, David Copperfield.
My Bad. What else from there? I'm just trying to name all of them for everybody so you can get on board.
The independent ones too, because he wrote the best Red Sonja story.
Yep.
For Dynamite since Gail Simone.
He wrote Dead Box, which is a fun book. Which when we talked to him, he said, "Oh, we're going to finish it. It's 5 issues. It's more or less a red box machine that knows too much about you." That was fun. I had him sign. That was my prideful moment where he's like, "Oh man, you got one of these."
He was happy.
Yeah.
We'll work our way up from obscure to well known, because then he wrote Not All Robots.
Not All Robots, which that one isn't unknown. That's his Eisner winner for the humor. But Not All Robots was more satire.
Millions of people know it.
Not millions, but
then he wrote Blade,
which was a one shot.
Blade. And to this day is only Marvel work.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'd love to see more of it. No, I take that back. Fantastic Four, full circle. Yep. The aforementioned Fantastic Four.
Life Story. Full Circle. Which one was it?
That was Spider-Man Life Story, Fantastic Four, Full Circle.
There you
go. But then the work that he's known best for, and the work that is closest to my heart. Not to say that all of those are not amazing, but it's his body of work for DC and his love for the characters and the stories that he tells. We can mention One Star Squadron, a takeoff of the 70s All-Star Squadron, 70s, 80s, where Red Tornado runs essentially a halfway house for superheroes in economic need. Not everybody's, nobody's clamoring to get Gangbuster a job. Nobody's, what do these heroes do who can't make ends meet? What do these D-list characters that had a moment in the 80s or 90s do now? And Red Tornado does his best to find them work, does his best to keep roof over their heads and clothes on their back, and it gets, again, Red Tornado, of course, an android, is the most human character in the comic.
No. So Full Circle was just the Stan Lee retelling with the Alex Ross art of Fantastic Four. Life Story is the Russell one.
Oh, yeah. It was banner year between those two and Ryan North. Banner time for the Fantastic Four folks.
Yeah.
And that brings, then he did Wonder Twins. He did
Swamp Thing. New Roots, I believe is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And then the aforementioned Snagglepuss and Flintstones. And he did an issue of Green Lantern where I think teams with Huckleberry Hound. But wouldn't it be amazing if the guy that did all these great, amazing things wrote a Superman comic?
Named it Space Age, maybe?
Wouldn't it be? And what if he got Michael and Laura Allred
To do the art,
I couldn't imagine something so. I bet it would be incredible.
it'd be unthinkable. That nothing that wonderful could happen.
Well, lucky day, because he just finished it. The hardcover just came out. Collects all 3 issues.
Tuesday. It'll be out Tuesday. So when you guys hear this,
No matter when you
day,
listen to this,
it'll be
out Tuesday.
Yes.
That's gonna be true,
It is true. It's absolutely true.
and it's one of the best.
It's just as good as you think.
It is. It's a masterpiece, and
It's Superman, and he gets Superman, and everybody else is thrown in there for good measure.
written by the most empathetic, humane writer working in comics.
And
right?
we're gonna get him in trouble right now because he told us something when we saw him at the show.
Do you think it's too inside base? Do you think it's too?
Nah,
Okay, go for it.
we don't. It's not confirmed or anything. But he has a pitch in with DC to do the same type of thing with
Batman, with the all reds on art.
Yeah, so we're crossing our fingers, hoping that's the case. He's also got a pitch in for an extension of the Blade thing that he kind of established.
Oh, and talk about setting
Vampire
up
Nation.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm not saying Blade needs Mark Russell, but Blade could really use such a great character as Blade could really use a great writer.
Which you just read. He is getting one.
Ooh, yes, the Blade film just bagged the Nick Pizzolatto, the writer of True Detective. So
Which, good for us.
bring it on. We're the winners there.
There, for sure. We haven't talked about traveling to Mars, bro.
Man,
We got to get there.
by by his own admission, when we interviewed him the first time, he said that this was his. He didn't say Matt. He said it was his favorite work of his.
I think it was his favorite work, which I think when a writer says that is they think it's their best work. Mm-hmm. So I don't disagree with him.
5 issues in, it is hard to argue.
It's very hard to argue. We've already said it. It's going to be a broken record at this point. If you guys, I mean, a lot of you that have listened have responded very well to it. Like I didn't think we'd be ordering as many copies of Traveling to Mars as we currently do, which is awesome.
Pushing it into a lot of hands.
And it's one of those books. Like, I think it's number 1. Like, so, and we kind of talked about this the other night, Shayne. Like, we were thinking, like, well, are we allowed to put Mark Russell at number 1 on this list? Because he's got, a couple hundred books maybe under his belt. And talking about Johns, who's got thousands.
Right. But it comes down to, like, every single issue. I've never read an issue. He's the only writer on this list that I've never read an issue where I was not
Completely engaged.
Completely. There's something there. There's something new to think about, a new idea I've never had in a 22, 23-page comic book.
Because it's also where bunk bed mishaps even. I fully expect this to be a book that's going to be, 1 part Far Side, 1 part Calvin and Hobbes, and 100% Mark Russell. Like something, it's going to be something like that where it's going to make me think or change my life. And I would never expect that from a Calvin and Hobbes type of cartoony book type thing like that.
But Mark Russell can spin gold from straw. Yeah. And we can end on his first one, which was his first comics work. It was 2015's Prez.
Yeah.
Which is, so if anyone's ever, but it's really crazy and delightful how that worked out, because Prez was a 4-issue comic from the 70s, and if you've ever read it, you know that it's just batshit crazy. But it's about a kid who becomes president, and
like a teenager, legit teenager.
Yeah, and that's what they rebooted it in 2015.
Yep.
Because the political climate at the time was just loving that stuff, and
Yep.
Mark Russell. But I don't think they realized how perfectly suited Mark Russell was to that material.
Incredible.
And he did a great, satiric but also heartfelt 6 issues of a Plan 12. He didn't realize, he was so new to comics that he didn't realize you could get canceled before you were done.
Yep. So if you read it, there's a trade for Prez, and you could. We luckily, while we were up there, we went to a shop.
Searching in the dollar bins, found a couple.
We found number 1 and 2 at least.
That's right.
So we got Prez on there.
We're the proud owners for few $4 books. But yeah, the readership was just as much as it was in the 70s, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, but he was already him then.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he was fully formed. He'd already written his books.
He had his voice, and it was also liberating because there's already the political aspect and the way, you could definitely tell the way he feels, but it was a book about politics, so he just let it rip. Like,
And about a child being present, like
right.
And if you, the more I think, it would probably be a perfect companion piece to a Billionaire Island.
Maybe
Like no one's really knows what they're doing.
it's the protagonist. It's the best person in the book.
Yeah.
Other than
She's
yet
just trying to
again
be right.
a robot. Right. So
Yeah. The most human characters in Flintstones are two appliances.
not all robots is the same way.
Not all robots.
And
Red Tornado. One Star Squad, and then obviously Traveling to Mars.
So I think he's completely and totally intrigued by where we're at as far as like in life and humanity and things like that.
Like
and
where's the species at?
Right.
And it seems dire, but as he told us, he is still an optimist despite all these things. He said he hopes the world is. He hopes we survive. He hopes we do all right.
Yeah.
And reading his comics, you think that maybe we can.
Yeah. Just listen to him. He's got some good ideas.
This Mark Russell guy, he's the best writer. He's the best writer in comics, and I'm starting to, I've read a lot. And I'm starting to think he might be my favorite writer alive.
Yeah.
You
mentioned it, and I've got
Michael Chabon. he's nipping at your heels. Also, read him, Mr. Chabon. You'd love him.
Yeah.
Big comic guy, that guy.
So I think that wraps everything up. I mean, unless you want to say anything else about overall, some honorable mentions maybe?
Well, yeah. Because Matt Kent was a very close number 6 for me. I think he's such an underrated writer. But he's another one where every time I pick up a book by him and I read it, I was like, why is this guy not bigger?
Yeah.
When Valiant rebooted their line in 2012, he didn't lead the charge, but he wrote quite a bit of the books, and they were the absolute standouts, and that's where he came on my radar. And since then, I've been really into his creator-owned stuff. Pistol Whip was great. Ether was great. The recent, Hairball just came out. Mr. Mammoth just came out.
Hard Case, all of his work for Bad Idea.
Oh yeah, his Bad Idea stuff is
Berserker.
terrific.
I mean, that's probably
that's
his biggest book.
right. Yeah, with Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
Keanu Reeves, who co-wrote it, air quotes. I'm sure he co-read it.
But that's not really.
I like Keanu. I'm just saying. I mean, come on.
Right. I mean, it's not groundbreaking work anyway. It's like, hey, it looks like Keanu and he can't die. Cool, huh?
Which would be cool, but yeah, that is not the cutting edge Kent. But if that's what gets you on the Kent train, that's great.
Sure.
Mark Waid,
absolutely.
But Mark Waid is such a force and so omnipresent that it's Mark Waid not making our list does not hurt Mark Waid at all. He's doing fine.
World's finest, and then next week Shazam.
Talk about a guy who's been in the game for years and is still doing great work.
Tower of Babel.
This
iconic stuff.
Terminal Velocity, one of the best Flash stories ever. Yeah.
Scott Snyder, we talked about him a little bit. He's on there. I mean, he's doing some stuff. Clear, Undiscovered Country, his Batman run, one of the strongest starts, one of the strongest overall runs of all time.
For the best edition, Court of the Owls, the best addition to the Rogues gallery in years. Except I also recent editions were Professor Pig and I Love Flamingo.
Yep. We did. I had mentioned Joelle. It was just she hasn't done enough. But everything she's done.
Boy, she's batting 1,000 right now.
Yeah,
she's batting 1,000 right now. But somebody who came on my radar with her Grimm and Harley this year was Stephanie Phillips.
Yeah,
like geez, where did you come from?
Nuclear Family.
That's right. Yeah,
and then she's been doing some work. There's all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like anybody on this list is bad. It's just that
Charles Soule. Just go back to the last few Daredevil writers, and you got that's going to be all the Mark. Oh yeah, I was going to say Mark Waid.
Zillion Genies, all the Star Wars work he's done.
Mm-hmm.
He can write, man.
What's the?
Soule's the co-writer on Undiscovered Country. So
yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's Soule and Snyder. Yeah.
Not God hates astronauts. What's Curse Words? Curse Words by Charles Soule. That's his masterpiece to me.
The creator-owned stuff, yeah, for sure.
Jason Aaron, my goodness.
People
are shouting still.
Yeah.
People are shouting. Donnie Cates for some people.
Yeah.
Dan Slott for others. we're just getting the names out there. I think Joshua Williamson did better with his creator-owned stuff than Flash than he's doing with right now. But he's still making it work.
He's
great first issue of Green Arrow.
He did the Dark Crisis stuff. I mean, we'll see, because I can't really judge. I mean, when somebody says they've got a 5-year plan, I can't judge it on the first year.
Right. And a big, like, almost made it was Gene Luen Yang, and it's Gene Luen Yang, not just because he wrote My Beloved Monkey Prince, but he's written, Boxers and Saints, Dragon Hoops, and American Born Chinese, which I think they just made into a show for Disney. I didn't read it. And then Superman Smashes the Klan. Superman wins. It was awesome. And he wrote some of the Terrifics, but yeah, then he did Monkey Prince, which that would get him on the list no matter what.
Yep.
Top 10. So
it's stuff.
I say it to Craig a lot. I think some of the best comics ever written are being written right now.
We are there are truly many fine books being written.
So good that like we didn't have to mention Brian K. Vaughan. We could forget about it until right now.
Shh. Yeah. I mean, yes. Go read Saga. Go read Saga. Paper Girls.
Go read Moon Knight by Jed McKay. Go read She-Hulk by Rainbow Rowell.
So many good things.
Yeah.
Black Cloak by
Russell?
No, Black Cloak is that Wilson? No. That's
Kelly Thompson.
Kelly Thompson.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. It's a great time to be a comic book fan, and it's a great time to start being a comic book fan. So
yeah,
get out there to your local comic book shop. They're not doing as well as you think, but Arcade, we're doing just fine.
Thank you, everybody. I think that's going to do it for this week, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you.